Thank you so much for that introduction. After that, I have been at least excused from the responsibility of giving you a little bit of my background. I would like to thank the Canon Collins Foundation, the Canon Collins Trust, for bringing us together. But the most important part is for making it possible for you guys to be privileged and powerful. We often associate power and privilege with historical privileges and power, but in reality, everyone in this room has a lot of power and stands on a pedestal of privilege that can be used to advance social justice. I thank you for being advocates for social justice and the trust for doing that. And Lawson, for all the things he has said about me as a colleague, he knows it took a village to tie up a lion. There's an Ethiopian saying that says, when spider webs combine, they can even tie up a lion. Can you imagine spider webs combining to tie up a lion? It must have happened. Otherwise, Ethiopians would not have that proverb. And the lion that we speak about in South Africa has been the lion of unfettered use of discretionary power in government, which went astray into grand corruption in the form of state capture. Just talking about that whole issue of state capture. A lot of people, when this thing happened, were asking themselves, what happened? Why are we experiencing this? And at the Power Protector of South Africa, we compared our situation to a bunch of mice in a book written by Spencer Johnson. How many of you have read that book? There were quite a number. You must get a copy. When I became public protector, I got a copy for my entire management team. The book is called Who Moved My Cheese? So during state capture, we wondered whether we were like those mice. So there were two sets of mice living together in one neighborhood. And all of them found some cheese in some cheese station, and they ate the cheese as mice do. And one day the cheese was gone. And the mice reacted in two ways. The one set of mice moved further to look for cheese. The other group of mice sat there, like many scholars, not you, like many scholars do, and complained, who moved my cheese? So they brought all sorts of expertise to look at what happened to the cheese, and others even started saying, but the cheese started moving a long time ago. You know, nobody even knew why the cheese was there to start with, who had put the cheese there. All they knew was the cheese was there and the cheese was gone. To cut the long story short, the mice that focused on who moved my cheese, with all of their money, all of their brain spent of that, ended up cheeseless. And the mice that moved further to look for cheese, they found cheese, and it was better cheese. And there's two things that emerge from that. The one is you can't stop turbulence in the world. And we live in a world of turbulence, and things change. And how you're going to move forward depends on how you deal with the turbulence. Do you respond as a victim, or do you respond as a leader? But if you respond as a leader, there's usually a purpose-driven approach to it. Now, but during state capture, I said there were those that just kept complaining, but the majority started to find better cheese and combined their spider webs to subdue state capture. The story that was never answered, though, is why did we have that turbulence? Particularly the turbulence that arose at the time there was a very divisive campaign in South Africa. And this campaign was about white monopoly capital. But this campaign is not different from other places in Africa. Many moons ago, before God even thought about whether he was going to bring some of you to this world or not, I was a student, and we found we found a similar pattern in the continent. So in this case, it was people were being corrupt, or there was evidence of them being corrupt. But as a dead cat strategy, they threw a dead cat of white monopoly capital, and to turn our attention to the dead cat and leave the real story. But it was not the first time that thing happened. In the rest of Africa, those dead cats are thrown in. They throw in the dead cat of tribalism. In some cases, they would even throw in the dead cat of imperialism. Zimbabwe, for example, with due respect, the opposition, when it won previously, it was accused of having been agents of imperialism. But what allows other people to move into that? Have you ever thought about the fact that not everyone who's a member of Boko Haram is compelled to be a member of Boko Haram? Not everyone who's ever joined ISIS was compelled to join ISIS. Not every member of the whole extremist groups in society are compelled. Many go there voluntarily. In my past life, I joined MK, nobody compelled me. What makes people do that? It's drastic, isn't it? Where there's democracy, there's courts, there's Chapter 9 institutions. Why do people choose extremism? Well, for me, the answer lies in leaving others behind. That people come into society because they want their fortunes to be improved, isn't it? Sometimes people even come into a greater conglomerate of societies because their fortunes have to be improved. Europe came together to form the EU. Brexit happened. Why do you think it happened? People, you would say they were lied to. But what made the lies resonate? Just go back. What made the lies around state capture resonate? There's a man who wrote a poem that can give us some idea to look at the problem of leaving others behind. His name is James Patrick Kenny. He wrote a poem, The Cold Within. How many of you have read that poem? Okay, I didn't bring the poem because I assumed everyone has read it. So I'm going to ask you to please read the poem tonight, The Cold Within. But I'm going to summarize it. It's about 6 persons sitting around a fire that is dying. It's cold and it's dark. So they need the fire for warmth. They need the fire for light. All 6 people have a stick of wood or a log in their hand that they could throw into that fire to revive it. And all 6 of them look at the fire, they look at their companions, and they decide, not to use their lock to revive the fire. Each of them has a valid reason in their head. So the battlefield is in the mind, isn't it? So each one of them has a battle in their mind. Should I throw the lock in? Should I not? And each one decides not to throw their lock in. One, for example, decides not to do it because they're white and they see a black person in the group and they say, no, that one should not get my lock. Another looks around and sees somebody who is not from their church, not a different religion, just not the same church. And he decides they're not going to get my look. A black person looks around and says, yeah, most of these people are white people and they've historically advantaged. They've exploited me for life. They're not going to get my lock. He keeps his lock. A rich person looks around and sees a poor person and he thinks, a lazy poor, you're not going to get my lock. The poor person looks around and sees a rich person and thinks, rich person, filthy rich, they're not going to get my lock. The last person I call a mercenary. You know, those people, we all know one of those people. The ones who will never do anything but for gain. He looks at these people and says, there's no chance they're going to pay me. He keeps his lock. So all 6 of them keep a log of wood instead of reviving a fire that is going to give them warmth and light. James Patrick Kinney ends the poem with words to the effect that they did not die from the cold without. They died from the cold within. This poem was written in the 60s in America at the time of Jim Crow laws, which are laws similar to apartheid. The person who wrote the poem was white, privileged, well, not super privileged, middle class, white, young male. But he already understood the notion of Ubuntu. And that as long as there's injustice somewhere, there can't be sustainable peace anymore. As long as there is poverty somewhere, there can't be sustainable prosperity anywhere. The United Nations has come to understand that truth. It understood that truth in 1948 when the Universal Declaration on Human Rights was passed. The Universal Declaration on Human Rights included socioeconomic rights. But subsequent to that, the world decided to ignore socioeconomic rights and only focused on civil and political rights. And recently, we realized that the reason our world is fractured is because we've left some of our people behind. So the world came with this Millennium Development Goals. And part of those goals was to halve poverty. Many countries did halve poverty. We now have sustainable development goals that are saying zero poverty by 2030. That means in all our respective countries, there shouldn't be a single poor person by 2030, which is 12 years from now. In South Africa, it's not just the sustainable development goals that tell us that poverty should be gone by 2030. Our National Development Plan also says poverty should be gone by 2030. But in South Africa, poverty has been rising. So who's really keeping watch? Why are people getting poor? Why is inequality increasing instead of decreasing despite the sustainable development goals? In other words, why are we still leaving others behind, despite the fact that we now know that when we leave others behind, it's going to harm us in many ways. The first thing is it diminishes our ability to progress. Because it's like you've got 4 legs, but you're running on 2. But also, the left behind people fight back. In America, people have wondered, why did people vote the current president? They even complain about, why are people becoming extremist? One Democrat, an American woman, decided, let me go and find out from the people. She came up with an answer that I had also arrived at a conference that I attended in Berlin. The paper that I delivered was, let's leave no one behind. And I had argued then that as long as there's injustice somewhere, there can't be sustainable peace anywhere. And I also had argued that the left had left the poor. You being scholars, you understand, people place politics in left, right, center. In the past, the left used to speak for the poor. But here in this country, for example, when we were busy with state capture, where was the Communist Party? It was right there saying, Thuli Madonsela has a God complex. She thinks she's Deputy Jesus. Thuli walks on water. All of those strange things were said by people who are supposed to be defending the poor. And as Pub Protector, we're defending the poor from corruption. Because corruption is a vicious cancer that not only undermines social justice by preventing a level playing field, but it also takes away the resources, the collective resources that are supposed to be channeled towards those among us that need a hand up. But why are these things allowed? Why do people like me and you unintentionally allow these things to happen? I would say one of the problems is a notion of justice is just us. We have a sense that we don't want injustice, but there's a tendency for people to be concerned about justice that affects them. So when I take a platform, I'm concerned about justice that affects black people because I'm black. So I'll raise my voice when black people are affected. When it's racism, I'll be at the front of. So when somebody attacks clever blacks, I'm black, I'm middle class, I'm going to be there and say, no, you can't attack us. I'm a clever black because I'm middle class and I'm black. When something affects women, black, white, disabled, national, non-national, etc. But if they're women, I'll be there, I'll raise my hand. This can't be right. But what about something that doesn't affect me? What if something affects the LGBTI community? And I'm not a member of that community, and I don't know anybody immediately who's my friend that I can have compassion for. Is it okay to keep quiet? What if the victim is a white, middle-class male? Is it okay when they're being treated badly? What if the person who's crying is a farmer or a farm worker? Is it okay if I say nothing? I think going forward, as we are talking about how do we create a more just and inclusive world, we have to think also about the unintended consequences of the good things we do. That if we do good things, that we forget the others. So if we set these boundaries based on our own identity, we may prevent ourselves from compassion and collaboration. But it's not just the problem of just us for me. as a pub protector, one of the things I also learned that prevents us from making sure that we don't leave anyone behind is loyalty. Is anybody in this world who doesn't want to have people loyal to them? You want your family to be loyal to you, isn't it? You want your friends to be loyal to you. But what if you kill someone? What if your friends steal? As pub protector, a lot of the people that we had to investigate were people I used to call my comrades. They were people I liked. They were people I wished the best for. But there I was now having to deal with finding the truth the way we knew how as a team, telling the truth the best we knew how, and making sure there are consequences for everyone found to have done wrong. It was our job to make sure there was no impunity. There was accountability for everyone, whether that person was my comrade or not. But I discovered, as we did our work, that some of my friends were not ready for what we had to do. They thought what we were doing was disloyal. And what kept me going was a message attributed to Oliver Tambo, who is really the Moses of South Africa. Much as I love Madiba, the real Moses of South Africa was Oliver Reginald Tambo, whose centenary we celebrated last year. And Oliver Tambo said, or is recorded as having said that, from all of you, I demand unquestionable loyalty from all of you. But don't confuse unquestionable loyalty with unquestioning loyalty. I discovered the hard way that some of my comrades wanted unquestioning loyalty. When we did Against the Rules, the police leases, there was a headline in the Sunday Independent that said, I was about to be arrested for fraud and corruption for a tender 1.83 million. It was all lies, but sometimes with the media, we say, don't let the truth interfere with a good story. So it was one of those cases because the journalist was approached by my team, not even myself. We looked for the information, we got it to them. Minister Jeff Hadebe also got the information, but, well, the story was too good not to be told. But it's not about the journalists, it's about the people who sent that story. That was the start of the backlash. And the backlash was, I remember addressing students at TUT College and saying, we're not the animal farm where people who liberated people should be allowed to eat for the people. And okay, let us eat because we're eating for you. But I also said that we're not the mafia, because in the mafia, you don't touch the family. So if you want to create a better world, you can't live by those rules, where you don't touch the family. You're just supposed to be driven by what you're trying to achieve. We always say it takes a village to raise a child. But think about it. It takes a village to maintain a human being from cradle to grave. No human being is an island. Even those people that have succeeded enormously in the business sector, none of them did it alone. They had a team that worked with them. They had workers that produced the product that they had to sell. They had marketers to do that. So, if we're going to end social injustice, we have to understand, like James Patrick Kinney understood, that it's not an act of charity. It's a self-serving act. By social justice, we're building better communities so that we can all progress further. Because I can't light your path without brightening my own. It's just impossible. But secondly, if we leave others behind, we do so at our own peril. In South Africa, we recently witnessed some people grabbing people from hospitals. It started in the Northwest, it's now happened in Gauteng, and I'm certain that all of you think this is appalling, don't you? And you think, what happened to their compassion? What happened to their sense of humanity? And that reminds me of a movie that my kids keep watching over and over again, The Phantom of the Opera. Have you watched it? Guy unleashes havoc on a whole community, and there's this young girl who likes him and he likes her. So at some stage, this girl by the name of Christine Dye asks the Phantom, have you no compassion for humanity? And the Phantom says that humanity showed no compassion to me. So yes, there are people who do extreme things, are doing deplorable things. They have lost their sense of humanity. But we can choose to mourn the darkness, or we can light a candle. And how do we light a candle? Of course, part of it is to engage with these people about better ways to articulate their concerns. But secondly, is to make sure that we create a world where people don't feel so destitute and desperate so as to resort to violence. A lot of it has to do with ending poverty, reducing inequality, but also making sure that our governments function appropriately, our corporations function appropriately. They don't rob their staff, they don't rob the communities they live in, as we saw in Maracado. I thought hard, what would be the best way of governing in a way that leaves no one behind? And whose job would that be? And I figured out, as we did in the Power Protector, that it should be everyone's job to make sure no one is left behind. And I think that's what brings you here, isn't it? Yes, Canon Collins may have paid for you, but you came here because you believe in something more than just being part of this community. You are committed to creating a better world. So what will it take to do so? What we learned at the Power Protector, which is something we're also learning at the Tuma Foundation and in the Social Justice Project at Stellenbosch University, is we need leadership at all levels. And that kind of leadership should be leadership that is anchored on the principles of epic leadership. Leaders who put us on the pedestal of hope in South Africa were epic leaders. Whether you're thinking Helen Suzman, Nelson Mandela, Mama Albertina Sisulu, Pixley Kasem, all of these people, Bram Fisher, Joe Slovo, all of these leaders in my view, were epic leaders. And what is an epic leader? It's a leader who is ethical. That's a person whose decisions and actions are principled, value-based, and they're about doing the right thing, the right way, because it's the right thing to do. Not because you're going to be arrested, not because you're going to be ridiculed, not because you're going to get negative media. Just doing the right thing because at the core of your being, you believe that a better world starts with you. So ethical. Epic leaders are also purpose-driven. I said what made us leave people behind is the principle of justice is justice. I also said it was also the concern about loyalty that tends to focus on unquestioning loyalty instead of unquestionable loyalty. But the third problem I left out is the fact that we always think that friends are always right, and that wrongdoers are always wrong, and good people are always right. Have you seen that? Where people think that if you're my friend, you'll always be right. If you do wrong things, whatever you do is wrong. Again, I like the American thing because there are people who just think that the current president is wrong all the time. But American workers don't think so because they felt left behind, and he keeps talking about them, and he's brought jobs to them, or at least he's trying to bring jobs. But I'm not saying he's the right person. I'm just saying when we think in a binary way, that people are either on the wrong side or the right side, people are either my friends or my enemies, we miss opportunities to correct the people we love, but also to find something good from the other side. And then we stop ourselves from collaborating because we've cut the line just like that. So epic leaders are purpose-driven. If I'm trying to go to Harare, and you can only go with me as far as the Free State, I'll go with you. I won't say I will only go with somebody who's going to take me all the way to Harare, because I might never find anybody who'll go with me all the way to Harare. That's purpose-driven leader. Epic leaders are also impact conscious. Most people don't do what we tell them to do. Do you know that? Mm-hmm. They do what they see us do. When we were kids, we read the story of a crab. Do you know that story? Oh God, I didn't think that your generation reads fables. So I'm excited that you know about these fables. So the story of the crab was walking in a crooked way, the little one. And Mother Crab asked the little one, "Why are you walking in a crooked way? Walk straight." And the little crab said, "But Mommy, you walk in a crooked way too." So often as leaders or as friends, as SRC chairpersons and things like that, we tell other people to do one thing and we do the other. What normally happens is people follow. Why corruption has become endemic, for example, our leaders go into podiums like this and say no to corruption, but people look at what do you do yourself? Are you engaged in corruption, or are you obviously benefiting from corruption? And people start thinking, but if you yourself are benefiting from corruption, why should I not? If you look at Singapore, that was one country that had a resolute fight against corruption. The head of Singapore, I think Lee Kuan Yew, was resolute in his fight against corruption. If one of his ministers came to him and said, "The Bureau of Investigations is investigating me, please interfere," the president would refuse. And it's a real life story that was told to us by our colleagues in Singapore, the public protector-like institution there, that one minister did that and went to the president and said, please, the prime minister, please stop the investigation. The prime minister did not only refuse to stop the investigation, he made a public statement to that effect. And the minister came to me and asked me to interfere with the law enforcement agency. And I will not, because in fact my ministers should be the first to stop corruption and the last to be involved in it. And that minister committed suicide, but of course wouldn't like people to commit suicide. Epic leaders are impact conscious. Lastly, epic leaders are committed to serve. But why is it important as a leader to be committed to serve? We found out at the Public Protector South Africa that when the storms rise, when the storms hit, you have to have a reason to continue. And that reason will pull you through. For us, it was always, we want to live in a better South Africa. So it was about the South Africa we want, the Africa we want, and the world we want to live in. And if it was not us who were going to contribute to creating the South Africa we want, the Africa we want, and the world we want to live in, who then was going to do it? We were paid to do that job, and we chose to do that job. But committed to serve becomes important. But for us also, committed to serve gave us the applause within. Because often, for example, with social justice, if you're always wanting the people you help to say thank you, you might stop helping people, isn't it? Because they don't always say thank you. Sometimes they feel, oh, you got help too, so I'm entitled to get help from you. So it's really about the applause within. I mean, in my case, for example, I just had my nephew who couldn't be helped by NSFAS. He just got his diploma at TUT, and he's now doing his, finalizing his BA in agriculture this year. What helps is the applause within. Just feeling, wow, you're doing the right thing. Walking into your house, your bedroom, and looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I like you. Because if you don't like yourself, no amount of praise you get from the world is going to help you to be a functional person. People will see you with the best of clothes, with the best of houses, a jet, a private jet, cars, a showroom, etc. But inside it will be hollow because you have abandoned yourself. So doing the right thing, being of service to humanity, if that's what you feel is good for you, make sure that it doesn't matter how much criticism you get. The one person whose approval matters, you make sure you retain that approval. That's yourself. And if you're me, of course, God as well. I've already said it takes a village to leave no one behind. And if we're going to go, it takes epic leadership, it takes a vision. It also takes reimagining the world we live in. And that reimagining is we should stop thinking in a binary way, in a dichotomous way. It's right, it's wrong. Well, there is right and wrong, but it's black, it's white. I often get criticized, or as public protector, I got criticized. Why are you investigating black people? Good God! You were not supposed to investigate people in terms of color. That was Martin Luther King many, many years ago in the 60s, who said he wants to live in a world where people are judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. But right here, in the 21st century, last year, up to this year, some people are still saying, judge people by the color of their skin, not the content of their character. So we need to reimagine the world. And in a world where right is right and wrong is wrong, but also we need to reimagine the world in terms of, I am my neighbor's keeper. And who is my neighbor? It's every human being. Whether they're in South Africa, or they're in Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, or anywhere in the world. They are my neighbor, because as long as there's suffering somewhere in the world, there can't be sustainable peace anywhere in the world. But also, as we reimagine the world, we need to reimagine democracy, and that's where you come in. I hear young people always quoting Marx, which I did during my time. I was a Marxist, and now I think Marx was right on many things, but wrong. He was 50-50, and on many things he was wrong. But I hear young people, we quote Sankara. Can you think, what did the world look like during Sankara's time? Sankara didn't quote Plato. He theorized. He envisioned a better world, and he envisioned the steps that we need to take to bridge the gap between where we are and that world. So among you, we need new philosophers, new Plato's, Aristotle's, Rousseau's, Sankara's, etc. That reimagining of the world would be about a world that is more compassionate, but a world also where there are no fixed borders. Borders in the heart, borders that are physical. But what will it take to bridge the gap between our world and the new world? It will take choosing hope over fear. If you look at the groups of Mandela and his colleagues, they collaborated across race, across gender, across regions, across political things. The ANC was not always ANC with black people, Indians, and colors, because under apartheid there was the Natal Indian Congress, there was the African National Congress, but people came together, united in their belief in a better world. But what brought them together was choosing hope over fear. So your generation, with my generation, given the fact that we're still alive, will have to do that to make sure that we bring everyone on board. If we don't bring everyone on board, they will not allow us to leave them behind. I mentioned to you the White Monopoly Capital campaign. And then I asked a question which I deliberately didn't answer, which was, why did it take root? It took root because if you're part of a community and you feel you're not benefiting from its fortunes, any change gives you hope, isn't it? That perhaps this change will bring somebody who will remember that I exist. It doesn't matter that that person might be lying to you, might be a political entrepreneur who's just harvesting your anger for their own gain. You're going to hope because you just think anything is better than what we have. So to move forward together, we need to make sure no one is left behind. But already all of us are doing something. So what is it that we need to do differently? Collaborate. I call it connecting the lights. How we defeated the lion called apartheid is because we collaborated. Like spider webs, we came together and defeated apartheid. We also subdued state capture by doing the same. And with regard to poverty and inequality, we need again to collaborate. Like spider webs come together to tie up a lion. We can tie up poverty, inequality, and in the process create a more peaceful world and a more prosperous world. Thank you.